Hey everyone, welcome to Be Our Guest, our weekly virtual happy hour with industry professionals. I'm Janki, Artistic Director of Live and in Color. We are an artist-serving organization dedicated to developing new stage works that promote and celebrate diversity. Like many others during the pandemic, Live and in Color is facing the challenges of keeping our company running. If you're able, it would mean so much if you made a donation today to support Live and in Color and our artists. Just go to liveandincolor.org to donate. Also, Live and in Color is currently accepting musical submissions for playwrights, composers, and lyricists of color and other underrepresented communities interested in developing their new musical. Submissions are due March 31st. Now, grab your cocktail and start leaving questions for our guests in the comments. Please welcome two incredible people, the creators of Live and in Color's musical in development within Elsewhere, the crazy talented Trent Jeffords and Josh Betancourt. Hello!
Cheers.
So good to see you both. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us, Dev.
This is so
I've
exciting.
been wanting to have you on the show for so long, and I'm so glad we are finally doing it. Where are you both calling in from?
Jersey City.
Jersey City?
Sunnyside, Queens.
All right. And is that home for the two of you originally, or where are you from originally?
I'm from Rochester, New York.
From where?
Rochester, New York.
Yeah. And Trent?
Yeah, also Rochester.
Wow. Did you know each other back then?
No.
Wow. Well, we're gonna find out how you met, but you're such an amazing team and creative partners. When did you first start working together?
I don't know the year. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I think, Josh?
Yeah.
How old are we? I don't know. We started working together on a show called, it was actually we were trying to make an adaptation of Coraline, and Josh was working on a little kind of like a script, and I had just finished doing Wiki musical at the Nymph in the Pearl Theater, and it was my first time writing music for a musical ever, and I wanted to write lyrics and music, and I saw Josh on Facebook, and I was just like, oh, hey, you're like doing this Coraline thing, and I love the movie, and I love the whole vibe, so like, let me know. And then we found out we couldn't get the rights to it, so we moved on to other projects.
And you've worked on several projects together. I know both of you are performers as well. And I know you have actually, each of you have many jobs and many careers. But how has performing influenced your writing?
Oh, a lot. I mean, Trent didn't mention, but we also both went to AMDA together, not at the same time. But as far as how that has influenced my writing, I take a lot of influence from personal reasons to family, but specifically performing, there hasn't been many roles speaking to, my background and the stories that I really want to tell and be cast in. So specifically that definitely influences the writing that I like to put out there for sure.
Yeah. Brent?
Well, I would say I work a lot from improv. So being kind of like in the theater and like always kind of playing on stage and playing vocally, that's kind of how I write music. I just kind of like improv, go with the flow, kind of like scat and do a bunch of really weird mouth noises until a song kind of appears. So I don't approach things from like a very analytical, like mathematical approach. I kind of do everything just from feeling and from my ear.
Well, what I'm curious, what is your musical background then? Have you been a musician since you were a kid?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Obviously me. I was in choir. I was in band. I played the bari saxophone because I was demoted from the alto saxophone because I did not play it very well. And so I was in band. That's when I learned how to read music. And then I did a lot of vocal competitions. But I always loved to write, but I never took piano lessons. So what I would do is I would just like skip class like a lot. And I would like sneak into like where they keep the rehearsal pianos, and I would just bang. I mean, like the worst noise you've probably ever heard in your whole life. And I would call it a song and thought it was brilliant. And that's really how it started. And it just kind of like snowballed from there of just like pure creation. I just wanted to create.
That's amazing. And Josh, when did you start writing?
Oh, that was like later on in my career, because I too, like Trent, I started off in vocal choir, show choir, competitions vocally, moved into musical theater when I came out here to New York, played the upright bass, electric bass, and then sort of kind of dropped off from that. But my passion for storytelling primarily started in my sketches and drawing and illustration, and then it kind of translated into like musical theater, like adaptions and adapting things to stage. And that really just manifested, and miraculously, I guess I'm good at writing, and that just kind of turned into project after project. And that's really where it came from, because funny enough, I was a horrible writer, horrible at grammar in high school, and it kind of served me well. So.
Well, yeah, I'm both of you really amaze me, because you sort of, we've been collaborating for a year now, if you can believe it. It's flown by. But yeah, I think our anniversary is coming up from when we did the first presentation of
ICMT. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I'm always so impressed that you don't come from a traditional musical theater background. Like, you didn't go to NYU or do BMI, but you have this amazing ability to be so free in your writing and so authentic, which, I just adore both of you. This is a sort of broad question, but what kind of work is most important to you in your writing?
Kind of work? Do you mean like storytelling, or
or musicals, or what kind of work do you gravitate towards?
I think Josh and I always like something with some type of quirky twist. The first show that we officially finally packaged and started to try and get produced, and we were working with a couple theaters on, was called The Imaginary, and it was like this imaginary friend. But it also had a lot of drama. Like, she had the main character had lost her father, and she had dreamt up this imaginary friend. So I feel like we come at this really interesting cross section of fun Tim Burton animated movies that also are they're simultaneously fun, but they're also about death and destruction. It's like this weird cross section where we're we're having a good time. Oh, my dad's dead.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't really know how to describe that, but I think that's something that resonates with both of us.
Yeah, we definitely, when we come to collaborating on projects, it takes us such a long time deciding on what kind of story we're going to tell, because we always like to pull random things, random ideas, random stories, stories that are written in the UK that people really don't know about here. So definitely, I love very dramatic stories, very heart-wrenching stories. Stories that'll make you cry, with sort of an edgy twist, like Trent said. I love Tim Burton. I love Neil Gaiman's work. That child play mixed in with there might be some serious fear and death here happening, and I pull inspiration from that. So,
well, it's wonderful. So let's get to Within Elsewhere, which was the new musical that you two are working on currently, which was selected last year as Live and in Color's musical in development. We were all ready to start working on it in person, but then the pandemic hit and the process moved to online. And we actually you two have been working very, very hard at it. Got a lot of work done this year. Can you tell our audience a little bit about the show? What it's about? Anything about it?
Yeah, I mean, so Within Elsewhere, really, the concept of it and where it came from was heavily inspired by my family. My grandfather passed away of cancer a couple years ago, and I just saw how the effects of his death while he was in hospice kind of tore my family apart. Very, very was traumatic on our family as a whole, specifically my mother after she died. And I pull a lot of everything that I work on and that I do is really pulled and inspired by my mother. So definitely when we lost him, I saw how that significantly impacted her and, what she went through during that timeline. And I remember specifically asking her one day, how are you doing with this? And she told me, I still call his voicemail just to hear his voice. And that's where our song we're going to share with you later is inspired from, where she said she would just call him just to hear his voice. And I told her, wouldn't that be an interesting story if he picked up? And I'm like, Tell me more. Well, how would you feel about that? And that kind of manifested and kind of snowballed, and the dynamic of the three siblings in the story is primarily, the dialogue is pulled from my brothers, my older brother and sister, and the dynamic there and the relationships that we have in our family history as well. And then I guess the concept of technology, this whole idea of all of us being elsewhere and all of us just wanting to be anywhere else than where we are, is kind of where that title came from. And the fact that we use technology nowadays to heal us, to validate us, was something that I know Trent and I really discussed would be so fun to just explore in this kind of environment, in this kind of world. So,
well, can you explain just the premise and the story of the show, just so they get
yeah,
what it is?
Yeah. So the show's about three siblings,
yeah.
Iris, Jonathan, and Omar. And we unfortunately lose Omar, who's the youngest brother, to cancer. And we sort of explore the other two siblings who are complete opposite from each other and their way of dealing with this grief and this loss. Jonathan, on one hand, is dealing with not wanting to forget about his brother, not wanting to get over the struggles of his death. And then on the other hand, we have Iris, who has really tried to put all of it behind her and kind of suppress that feeling of, we need to move on and we need to get things better in our life. Elsewhere, he escapes through to where he's able to reconnect with Omar.
Explain what Elsewhere is.
Elsewhere is this digital app on your phone, conveniently placed on your phone, where you can basically go and fix what needs fixing. You can go and explore maybe things in the past that you wanted to mend and fix. And in this story, Jonathan wanting to make things better with his brother. He wasn't there the day that he passed, so he wants to go there and basically flesh out the relationship that he had with his brother, and I kind of right some wrongs that he felt he did in the past, and become slightly obsessed with this opportunity as he doesn't want to face the reality of his life in the outside world. So, Trent, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that was a great recap. Yeah, I think that was a good recap. I was just going to add, when you were talking about the origin of the show, when we were creating the show, it was a comedy. And then Josh found this really neat, like, I don't know what you call it, a diagram, and it was about time and like where you are. And it was very elevated, kind of like a philosophical two-dimensional view of time and space, and like there was this like speck outside of the graph, and it was like, that's like elsewhere. And that's kind of when Josh was like, oh, this story, we're going to morph it into this other thing, and he made it much more in line with something that his own experience with his family.
I have so enjoyed working on it with both of you, and the themes of grief and escapism and technology all colliding. I mean, how has this year, specifically with those things, influenced the writing? I mean, we're all obviously dealing with a lot of grief, and and our whole life are these boxes and these machines. So how has the story changed over the year, and has it? I
think it 100% has. Yeah, I think when we started the show, when we were with you at ICMT, there were only 3 songs and I think 3 scenes, maybe. And like 4 characters. And as we continued to write it, we wrote it in isolation of quarantine. And I think that absolutely affected our own psyches and how we viewed then the characters and how we viewed what their response might be to a situation where technology can free you from a reality that you don't quite want to be in. Because I think that's what a lot of us, that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're using this technology to like escape the fact that I'm trapped in my bedroom in Sunnyside, Queens. Like, so I think it 100% has. And it's kind of taken on this like this other kind of form, in the sense that I think everyone right now is experiencing grief collectively. And before the show, I think was just kind of about like this one character. And I think it's kind of broadened the voice of the show to be like, talk about grief as a whole, and something that's kind of a universal experience now, that we're all trying to figure out, how do I go through this, and what's okay and what's not, and what am I feeling today, and how do I move forward when I feel like I can't, and all I want to do is go backwards. Mm-hmm. I think all those things stirred together helped change the shape of the show.
Absolutely.
Joshua, anything to add to that?
No, and I think it also highlights that it is okay to feel the things that you're feeling currently. I think a lot of people feel that they have to pretend they're okay, or they have to put a facade that everything's going great. And sometimes it's okay for you to say that everything is a mess and that everything is a shit show right now, and that basically we want to convey that everyone's going to deal with situations in different ways, and it doesn't matter how you get through it, just as long as you find some sort of outcome at the end of this. So that really influenced all of this.
It's an interesting thing just hearing you talk about it and our discussions all year. I mean, it really sounds like such a downer show in a many ways. But I have to say, you two are some of the funniest, most uplifting and positive writers. And I think that's what's so special about the show, that it helps. It approaches loss and grief in a very sort of real, funny and poignant way. It's certainly not a depressing show at all.
No, we don't want it to be depressing. And I don't really think that it is. I think there are moments that are sad because of the reality of the situation, but certainly we didn't want to create something, I don't know, we've all seen that kind of, that type of story before, where it's like, be sad. It's like the show is saying to the audience, be sad. You have to be sad. We're all being sad right now. We didn't want that. We actually wanted to have a lot of fun. And there's a ton of comedy in the show, actually, and all these adventures they go on with and elsewhere that are very childlike and very kind of have this like naivete to them. And then they're kind of crushed with that reality of, oh, wait, but in the real world, you're not there. And that's hard for me. And that's something that brings the sadness into it without us having to say, oh, hey, we're all feeling sad right now. Because I think in my own experience with grief and like mental health and things like that, things aren't linear. You know, sometimes you wake up after the passing of someone you really loved and you have a joke with someone and you're laughing, and there are other sides of the coin. It's all like a big mixing pot. It's not just, oh, we're all sad now until we're not sad anymore. You know, it's more like one of the songs from the show is based off that theme of wherever you go, there you are. And it's more like you're going to take all of this with you everywhere. How do you process that so you can be happy in moments as well? And you can get from, 20 to 60, 70, 80 years old and know how to process your emotions, because it's still going to be there. It's not going to magically disappear, but you need to know how to handle it.
So we're going to be sharing, it's very exciting, a sneak peek from the show tonight, one of the songs. Can you just set the song up and tell us what it is and who's singing?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the moments that I was telling you about, the phone call. So we have an isolated moment where Iris has just received some news from school that was very hard for her to hear, something she's passionate about, and her instinct is to call her brother. Omar. So you'll hear at the top of the song a voicemail from her brother, and then vice versa, we peek into the world of Jonathan, the oldest brother, who then in turn tries to seek sort of comfort in calling his brother as well. So we sort of see both of their perspectives on the loss of their brother in two separate moments in the show.
And just to give people context, the brother has recently died, so they're still...
Right. Omar has just recently passed away, and so they're both calling the voicemail to hear his voice, and then simultaneously to kind of display how they're feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
Can you tell us who's singing, Trent?
Yeah, so I'm singing because I was requested to sing. So just a disclaimer, I was requested to sing. There is a wonderful Latin man that is recording our demo that I can't wait to share with everyone. But just for this one instance, I'm singing with a good friend of mine named Jessica, who actually I met with you, Dev, at the ICMT at the college in Manhattan. And she had this beautiful, beautiful voice. And we were just like, oh, I've worked with her on a bunch of projects now because she's really quick and she's just become a really good friend of mine. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have 2 days. Will you just like make this little video with me really quick?
And I think you said she's maybe calling in from Europe somewhere, right? She's
she's in France. She's in France right now.
Great. And the name of the song?
The Light in the Room.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, The Light in the Room.
What up? You've reached Omar. Please leave a long message after the beep. No, really. Keep it short.
For a second I forgot you were gone. I hear your voice and it's like nothing is wrong. I feel staring at me, wondering, what is she doing? You'd say, get up off the floor. It was easy for you to smile. Try it, you'd say, even just for a while. You'd wink and laugh from your chest. You always knew how to bring out our best. You were the light in the room, the glue that kept it all from falling apart. You'd say something smart that you knew would cut through all the gloom. You were a pain, you were naive, you took up all my energy. You were clumsy, you would never deceive. You gave me something to believe. Tell me, how am I supposed to see without the light in the room?
What up? You've reached Omar. Please leave a long message after the beep. No, really. Keep it short.
For a moment I believed you were here, and just for that moment everything was clear. You were the one who would listen, no matter the friction, nothing was hidden. You were the light in the room, the glue that kept it all from falling apart. You'd say something smart that you knew would cut through all the gloom.
You were messy,
You didn't have a clue,
you were my first thought each morning.
and my worry at
You
night.
were funny,
You were always so bright, and you were getting there. Now what am I supposed to do? You were my gravity. My whole world revolved around you. How can I just move on? Before everything was so clear, you were the spark, and now my whole world has gone dark. You were the light in the room, the glue that kept it all from falling apart. You'd say something smart that you knew would cut through all the gloom.
you were my brother,
You were my friend, and I never thought it'd end.
so tell me, how am I supposed to see?
Tell me, how am I supposed to see? Tell me, how am I supposed to see without the light in the room?
Yay! Great job. That song I can never get sick of it. It's so beautiful. And for our viewers, wait till you hear the rest of the score. It's really, they're crazy talented. And I'm so excited for us to get back together in person so we can actually see this amazing show. Ultimately, when we can do it, what is the ideal takeaway you hope the audience will get from the show?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. There's so much I want people to take away from the show, but definitely, I think it's that message of no matter what's going on with you or what you're dealing with or the struggles you have to deal with, you always have people support. It may not be direct from family or from friends, but you can make it through whatever obstacle you're going through, and you can overcome it on the other side.
I think hope. I think hope is probably one of the major themes of the show. That sadness isn't forever, and there is something beautiful on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. you know, this year has been very interesting just because we've been stuck together, and the two of you have been very, very creative. And we've gotten to collaborate on several projects. And, you know, what has it been like shifting? We actually commissioned you to write two different virtual mini musicals this season. What has it been like writing for that medium?
It's not a free-for-all, that's for sure. We love to do so. One thing that Josh and I love very much is to have, like, which this song didn't highlight purposefully so because we wanted just like a small song. But usually, as you know, our songs have all this dialogue and there's a lot of layering going on. We really enjoy that kind of vibe. So you can't do that in Zoom because it just can't handle it, and people don't know where to look. So you really have to like center everything and really focus your writing on like one topic and like one person, which is sometimes challenging when you want to convey a lot of things. You have to really focus on one thing.
Yeah. I think it's been the challenge for all of us trying to create theater in these boxes. But it's definitely stretched what our abilities are. In terms of how we tell stories. We are, you know, it's been a year, so now we are actually accepting applications for our new musicals for next season. What would be your advice for those who are considering applying? I know you've also applied for a lot of other grants and festivals.
Yeah. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Literally tell the stories that you want to tell, you know, write the music that you want to write, and be open to collaboration. Dev, you've been such an incredible collaborator and creating a platform for writers and composers and lyricists and just storytellers to just freely be able to explore the work. And I think that's so crucial in developing shows, is being able to take feedback, reinvent it, and then kind of just let things crash and burn and then reinvent it again. I think that's just the incredible process of it. It's tiring. It gets our wheels creatively like flatlining with creative juices, but I think it's all part of the process. So
yeah, definitely don't be afraid. If you think, don't judge yourself. You know what I mean? Just be like, this is what I have to say. Art doesn't have to always even be good. It just has to come from you, and it's unique. So if you're writing, that's fantastic. And if you should submit.
Yeah. Submit. So both of you know, I always ask this question to our guests. Our mission at Live and in Color is to connect diverse communities to create new stage works. What does having an inclusive working environment mean to you?
Everything. Literally everything. The freedom to be able to explore and say things. It's always hard to be in a creative environment where there's so much limitation on the words that you're saying and the type of stories that you're telling. Specifically for me, it can literally muzzle me. It can, you know, get me to be afraid to say what I need to say or to say the dialogue that I need to say. But yeah, that's definitely
there's so much more flavor. It's like cooking with salt and pepper and then opening a whole spice rack. Like, it's like, it makes everything better always 24/7. And I think in theater especially, we're so used to everything being like a box. So you're this person and you're this person, and it limits your writing capabilities because everything gets kind of, you start being really creative and then you meet like producers and all this stuff, and then everything slowly kind of fiddles down to these like stereotypes, and you're like, wow, I just wrote a story we've all already seen before.
Yeah. And
so having an inclusive environment, it's like Live and in Color, allows us to like open that spice rack and have like some amazing musical food. I don't know. There's that.
I love that. We might have to steal that as one of our catchphrases.
Yeah, I want 10%, but you can take the 9.
I think we have a few questions from our audience. Sophie says, do you have any advice or ground rules you follow in order to have a successful collaboration? Interesting.
No.
Be respectful always, and every idea is a good idea, even if it's not going to be something you include into your work. Just as long as you always explore it and be open to hearing everyone's ideas across the table. Trent gives me amazing feedback, incredible ideas. He sparks other ideas and vice versa. And the same with you, Dev, working with you on this piece. You've given us incredible feedback on it, some that we've taken, some that we've molded and shifted around. And I think just being open to everything is key.
A lot of creative teams, everyone kind of stays in their lane. It's like, oh, I'm writing the lyrics, I'm writing the book, I'm writing the music, which is totally the way people do things because that's the most respectful way to do things. Josh and I are more like a car crash. We just kind of like, we're all up inside each other's like creative spaces and we just make a big mess and then we like clean it up and we're like, oh, there's a show there.
Well, that's what I so admire about the two of you. You really are fearless, and you know, you are an endless well of ideas. It's very exciting to get to collaborate with you. So I think it's a very useful thing to have that skill to be able to, as I say, not be precious with things, but also like, you know, let's try something new. Let's try something new.
We just want it to be good. I would say that's our number one rule is we're like, we just want it to be good. So if I got to throw out 4 songs, then they're goodbye and we write new songs. It's just, it is what it is. I think when you get really precious with things, then you kind of run into the situation when you're like, no, and like your puzzle piece of the music is one shape and then the other one's another shape and they just don't fit together quite well. And then you watch the show and you're like, what even is this?
I'm actually curious, how many songs have been thrown out this year? There've been a lot already since we started. It's like, I feel like.
Oh, no. I off the top of my head, actually it's not that bad. Off the top of my head, I want to say like 4, really, maybe 5. A lot of them got repurposed. Yeah. That's because we had that one version that we did, but they got repurposed into other songs because I was lazy and I was like, this is but on our old show, The Imaginary, I mean, holy moly, there might be 40 songs to that show and there's only like 25 in the actual show.
We always joke that we're gonna host a concert of all the cut songs.
Oh, yeah. Let's take another question. Rack says, what is your favorite part of creating a new work?
Everything.
My favorite part is hearing the text come alive on actors. I get so emotionally tied with every single word that I put on the page, and I get emotionally invested into all the songs that Trent writes. So when I hear it come to life, you'll see my face in the room. I'm crying in the corner, like every song that they sing, every word that they say, sometimes shocked by the things that I write that I didn't realize came across a certain way. So I think just seeing the material come to life is the most rewarding, and definitely the response from the actors after we've done a reading is the best gift to me as a writer. Their take on it, what they feel from it, how it made them feel, what they connected to. All of that is always so rewarding to me. I don't care if it's on a stage. I know Trent does, but I don't care if it's on a stage.
Let's get it on the stage. I just want to move. I'm ready to move. I would say my favorite part is equal to Josh's. It's so interesting because new work you think is one thing until you get a bunch of people in the room and you realize it's a whole other thing. It's so fluid. It doesn't stay the same. It's not like when I was performing and it's like we're doing the same show and it's the same show every night for a couple months. So it's interesting how fluid it is, and that feels very freeing.
I think we have one more question. Let's see what we got. Robert says, do you have any future collaborations we can look forward to soon?
We were talking about stuff. We have nothing to reveal at the moment, but we are working on some ideas.
All right. Well, I want to hear them too. Thank you both for joining me. We're out of time. I'm so honored and proud to be collaborating with you two, and I can't wait for the world to see this beautiful show. Before we go, please consider supporting our organization by going to liveandincolor.org to donate. All money raised goes towards our amazing artists and developing their new work. Also, be sure to tune in to Be Our Guest next week when we talk to the incredible Mary Mitchell Campbell and Zane Mark from Musicians United for Social Equity. It's going to be an incredible conversation.
Oh God, Mary Mitchell's amazing.
Yeah, right?
I'll be watching.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today, and thank you, Trent and Josh, for joining me.
Thank you.
Can you lead us in a little toast before we go?
Oh, no. I would just say here's to finding your light in the room, because our song was the light in the room. So I think we all deserve a little bit of happiness in quarantine, wherever that comes from. If it comes from musicals or little Zoom things or whatever you do, find your light in the room and hold on to it.
Here, here. Thank you both. Cheers. We'll see you next week, everyone.
It's time to change.